Heyo everyone, welcome back to Vaddjian. So for today we will be finishing the flat ride and I will try to talk about what I'm building, how I'm building, but we all know that I try to talk about that and then I forget and I ramble on about complex societies and steam pits and whatever my brain wants me to talk about. So yeah, let's get into it, shall we? So I didn't want to talk about the flat ride because I think I've talked enough about flat ride for the last two videos. It's also not because literally I have no idea what to talk about with the flat ride because that's obviously not the case. Yeah, that is the case. Anyways, how I build. This is mainly just to give you guys a bit of an idea or an insight on how this crazy squirrel builds. You know, I have said it a lot of times, I've actually not spoken the truth or the complete truth about it. Or at least, I've just recently come to the revelation that I really said a lot of times that I start with the story, which is actually not that true. I start with a reference or just an idea. Like Tinopolis started with probably some image that I saw of an ancient Greek temple, and then because I like ancient Greece, I started building because I wanted to build something like that. Vaddjian started with basically just seeing an image of this palace in the snow with the Alonian or Vabbian, like it's somewhere in between. It's a bit more Vabbian style building because Eastern and Corner have a very different style, and that palace that I saw didn't look anything like that. But yeah, I saw the reference, I wanted to build something like that, and from there I started kind of developing a story behind everything. Mainly because, of course, I'd like to have buildings and just parks with a story, with a great overarching story that reaches into every ride and every part of the park. Of course, because I like stories, but also because it helps with building. As a story develops, you kind of walk into things that you probably should address, and then you build things because you want to address it. It also helps that I have a slight, I wouldn't say background, but I have a bit of knowledge, or like maybe 2 brain cells of knowledge on how a city or a town works. So that obviously helps, because then you also realize that on a realistic level there are problems, like as I said in 2 videos ago, Vaddjian would probably need a steady supply of its own food because they wouldn't really have any outside way to get food. And that's because I have that, like those 2 brain cells with knowledge. And then I start building that, and then I got the idea like these steam pits aren't large enough to supply the town, and that's how this flat ride, the Waters of Vaddjian, was created. That all came from that one story of that small town in the frozen wasteland with this Vabbian style building and architecture. That all stemmed from first of that one reference, and then it grew into a story, and now it continues to grow. Because beyond the first story, it just continues to grow. You know, the story goes on. And that's why I think Vaddjian probably will never really be completely done. Though, probably at a time, because Vaddjian, of course, is still a park. It is still in Plant Coaster, so it can't be evolving forever. So at a moment, the story will freeze, as it were. It will be frozen in that one area or that one chapter of the story. But by then you have a whole park, or at least I have a whole park. So that's basically how I start building. It's getting a reference, getting an idea, and then building a story behind it, and then going crazy with that story. Think of problems that would arise. Though that's probably is mainly helpful if you're like me and you like to build towns and cities in Plant Coaster. For me, Plant Coaster is really just city skylines with a little bit more detail. I'm probably just a bit way too perfectionistic and just want to involve myself in every little detail. It's probably because of that. Also just because I love building towns and cities in Plant Coaster. I love the aspect of towns and cities. I just love the feeling that all their towns and cities give off. And I want to build that in Plant Coaster. However, I've actually never really recreated something. None of what you see in this video or in Vaddjian, you will never see that in Guild Wars 2 because it doesn't exist there. Like, as I said, it's from a reference, it's from this one palace. And of course I get more ideas, get more reference pictures of Vabbi from Guild Wars 1 but also from Guild Wars 2. And then I put my own spin on it. So probably the hardest thing for me to ever do is make a recreation, because I love to make things my own, because I'm just too perfectionistic, or I think there's another way to say that, but yeah. Let's just keep it at that. Quick wrap up of that whole ramble. I start with a reference, I get a story behind the reference or behind the idea that develops from the reference. Then I see how the story plays out and see problems that would arise in the story. I solve those problems through things in the park that I built. Basically the town and everything is just a background to that story. That's the quick wrap up of how I built. Maybe it will give you a few clues on how you could approach building in Plant Coaster, or it will just completely mess with your head and just make you confused about everything. Probably the latter. But now that the ramble on how I built is pretty much done, let's go into the next ramble on what I built, or also kinda relates to how I built but in a different way or a different take on the words. Because I quickly, when I first started uploading Vaddjian, I got the question like, this is a frozen biome or just, you know, a snowy Arctic biome. Where would you get sandstone? And because sandstone naturally doesn't exist in Arctic biomes. And that just really threw me for a surprise that, first of all, you think about this more than I do. But then it also gave me the idea like, yeah, that is a problem I should address. Because sandstone is so, well, it's used in every building now that I built. Because there, I quickly said that wood would probably be actually very valuable in Vaddjian compared to sandstone. So I would need a way to give a solution to the problem of why all the sandstone, or not why all the sandstone, but how. Because I also said Vaddjian is very isolated, so I don't see it really happening that all these building materials would be imported. As I said in, I think, the second or third video of Vaddjian, Vaddjian needs to be able to exist on its own because it's so isolated. So I need to quickly make a solution to how they would get all this sandstone. And so I'm thinking of kind of a story arc that the sandstone is available in Vaddjian, and that Vaddjian once was maybe like a savanna-like place that was later frozen or just later got cold. Because those regions do exist in Guild Wars 2, where it once was a sea and then it turned into a sulfurous wasteland where no living thing exists anymore. And that any living thing going into that wasteland pretty much dies on contact with the land. And then you have areas where it once was it was just a mountain range full of snow and everything, and now a volcano came up and everything is warm and luscious and jungle-like. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Vaddjian could be a place like that, where there was just a massive climate change for once. I do still think that the Vaddjians as a people didn't really get to see that climate change. I do still believe that they came after that they did find the sandstone that was hidden beneath the sands. So I need to work that in, and then to quickly also go into wood is kind of an expensive commodity in Vaddjian. I have already said it in earlier videos, but beyond the steam pits I don't see a lot of vegetation in Vaddjian when it comes to, you know, my idea of Vaddjian. I have lately built some buildings. I have to immediately say, like, as I said before, well, the videos are a little bit behind on what I'm actually building. Because of that, I can already talk about like some things that in our world are very expensive, such as gold is actually pretty normal in Vaddjian. in Vaddjian, gold is somehow less expensive as a building material than wood. So that does bring the idea that if you see a building with a lot of gold, it doesn't mean that the owners are rich. If you see a building with a lot of wood, then it implies that the inhabitants of the building are very rich. I don't know how I got to that point. I think it was just like that I started building and just not used a lot of wood because, you know, I first thought like wood, you know, isn't used a lot in Vabbi, and so I thought it wouldn't be used a lot in Vaddjian, but then I thought like this is an Arctic climate that Vaddjian is in, probably not a lot of trees, probably not a lot of wood. So then it quickly became wood is a status symbol in Vaddjian. Like if you have really beautiful carved wooden shutters and everything, you are probably one of the wealthiest people in Vaddjian. So that's why there's not a lot of wood in my buildings when I'm building. Though later on you will probably see a lot more gold and appearing in buildings, because they would probably be less expensive than wood, which is really weird if you think of it from a real world perspective. Gold is only valuable because we are willing to pay a lot for it, and also because it's rare. Like that's a fun thing to think about. Like everything that we pay so much for is only worth it because it's either rare or because we are willing to pay a lot for that. Economy is weird. Now I'm also getting flashbacks of every economics class that I've ever taken, and that's, well, let's not go back to that. Yeah, the building that you see right now has a lot of wood, and it's sometimes in weird places. Sometimes it's like, why do you use wood there? But then it's just because it's a status symbol in Vaddjian. So that's why there is wood there. I've said wood so many times that I probably have mispronounced it 1,000 times, and now I'm thinking like, have I mispronounced it? And now I'm really self-conscious on how I say wood. Do any of you guys ever have that? That's just a weird thing that I have, that if I say things long enough or for a lot of times, I get really self-conscious on have I said it correctly or have I just mispronounced it, and am I just an idiot? But yeah, that was my ramble on wood and just building materials that I use for Vaddjian. Anyway, that ramble will close off this video. I really hope you enjoyed the rambles and just the video in general. If you do, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. I hope you have an amazing day, and bye bye!